After completing Legends ZA, I've gotten my hands on every new Mega, except for these three, because I'm not dealing with online matches, but despite that, we now have a slew of 26 new Mega Pokemon currently available. From the mind-bending and personality-changing Malamar, to the goofy horror that is our humanoid Starmie, the Bodhisattva that Barbaracle turns into, and even the secrets behind our legendary Zygarde, taking its 100% form and going even further beyond. So now, after mastering Mega Evolution, I can now bring to you the origins of every ZA Mega. Howdy there, I'm Krillix, and we're gonna break down every new Mega that has been released, their lore, real-life science, and history connecting them to our world, and some interesting theories I do want to bring to you. Though I think I'll be saving the Raichus for when Mega Dimensions comes out. I want to analyze them properly, which is why I've actually done the work to get my hands on every ZA Mega minus, again, the Kalos trio, but we're still going to talk about them. I will be using what is on Bulbapedia to assist me here and there, though even they hardly have info on these new Megas, at least at the time when I was researching them. Meaning I will be digging even deeper to find my own connections, thorough explanations, and everything you may not even find anywhere else. I'll be saving the lore of Mega Evolution for another video, so let's just go through the Pokédex mostly in order. I'll give my opinion on the Megas, maybe show a few of my original reactions when I streamed the entire game, and we're actually going to get started with Clefable. We get a full-on magical girl fit with little beret to match those French vibes of Lumiose. Seems like the top of it has a bit of a curl like what we see in typical Clefable line fashion, which also makes me think of French pastries like the Religieuse. I don't know how to actually say that. The wings it now bears on its back are massive wings that attach to the center of its tail like a hinge would, but it doesn't even use them as it just uses the power of moonlight to fly around, controlling gravity within a radius of over 32 feet around it. Though that now allows it to become a fairy flying type, not necessarily something that I was exactly expecting, and I didn't realize it until I actually looked at its Pokédex. Now, this thing is only 5'7" or 1.7 meters tall, meaning I wouldn't be surprised if it could cause a number of other objects or other Pokemon to float when they come too close to it. Doesn't say that it does, but again, it would be kind of cool to see this thing launching objects, people, Pokemon around at Mach speeds just because it could control gravity around the area. Now, regarding the way it looks, you could compare it to the cherubim that are typically displayed as Christmas ornaments, which would make all those little sparkles that it has constantly around it look like snow. Its ears, though, weird me out, and I probably spent a good hour trying to figure out what's going on here, because Clefable normally already has super sensitive hearing, and now its ears have elongated to be about the same length as its arms, if not longer. And I know that when you put tubes in someone's ears, it can help restore normal hearing due to things like fluid buildup or infections, which I guess if its ears as Clefable have been damaged from the loud sounds of the city, it would make a bit of sense that they look like this now. After all, Clefable itself can hear a pin drop from nearly 1,100 yards away. That's 0.625 miles or a single kilometer. That's just how sensitive its hearing is, and now it lives in Lumiose City, where tons of people are battling all the time. So much noise pollution is being created. In addition, we already know that Clefable is from space, with a lot of inspiration from the moon, making it so that way we might have the moon rabbit as part of the inspiration here as well, which would make sense. It does kind of look like the ears are drooped down like a rabbit's ears when they're resting, so, you know, there's a slight tie there. The inner ears are also blue, which I suppose if you want to, you could tie it to the phrase Blue Moon, denoting something rare, especially since Clefable was a Pokemon that was considered rare in lore. It was a Pokemon that was rarely seen by people, since it would hide away in quiet places such as deep within mountains due to that sensitive hearing. And the last bit that I can really try to tie to those ears is that they are shaped like a cone, more aptly a paraboloid, which allows sound to be amplified on the way out. So I'm not sure how that would help it, but Clefable are noted to be out on quiet nights trying to listen to their family on the moon. Overall, we really have an easy tie into how butterflies might be depicted and how fairies are too, especially with all the sparkles happening around Mega Clefable's body. It's a cute Pokemon overall that didn't need a lot to be done with it. Sometimes the simple additions are more than enough, like what we see here, and I'm fairly satisfied with it. I wasn't satisfied enough to put it on my team, though, I have to admit. The Gordest with the mostest acid in its body, Mega Victreebel, is up next. I'm not joking either. Its body is very much shaped like a drinking gourd, especially with the similar head wrapping around the neck and then the much larger, very bulbous lower body. Kind of imagine if I touched it, like my hand would kind of squish into it and I would never see it come back. But anywho, much like the gourd, it bears a large amount of liquid inside. Too bad you wouldn't want to drink from this one though at all, since it is absolutely full to the brim with acid. I'm not saying, oh, it's close to the brim. No, it is literally on the verge of leaking out. In fact, it keeps the acid from overflowing and spilling out by just wrapping the vines around itself, which is why it looks this way. Now, Mega Victreebel may be based on the Nepenthes genus in particular, specifically their lower traps that tend to be larger and sit on the ground. The same way Mega Victreebel's vine constricts its mouth shut may also be inspired by the coiling vines of several Nepenthes species, such as Nepenthes mirabilis. When it does release its hold, it opens its mouth wide, and an excess of acid is released while its body deflates. Kind of like a water balloon, actually. This is also its new hunting method. No longer waiting for Pokemon to come to it, it now actively and very aggressively bounds and bounces, if you can consider that aggressive, after its prey, tackling it with their entire body. The acid that has been sitting inside of its body has also matured, creating a dizzying sweet scent. This is very closely related to the fermenting process that is used for a number of different types of alcohol, which could potentially, create the same scent. Because honestly, when you pop open a gourd, you're gonna get hit with a pretty strong smell from all of the stuff inside of it being held inside of the container for so long. This scent that Victreebel releases is used to immobilize opponents by fanning the fumes towards them with the leaves that typically rest against its head. And it's not as if you can hide from it behind anything either, since that acid is strong enough to melt concrete or steel. Honestly, it makes sense that this goofy Pokemon would end up having such an excessive amount of acid, considering that Victreebel has gluttony as an ability, though real-life pitcher plants hardly ever fill up with so much digestive fluid, mainly because they have their own ways to manage it and prevent such a thing from happening. Now, the sweet scent that it wafts from it is also exactly what pitcher plants do in real life, though not to the point of causing dizziness. They actually release a very specific scent in order to lure specific insects as prey. Think of it like a flower attempting to attract specific bees or hummingbirds to it, although flowers and hummingbirds kind of co-evolved together. I'm not going to talk about that because that's a whole 30-minute conversation in and of itself. Though things like air pollution can actually cause these scents that they release to be obscured. And while Lumiose is a lot more green than most other places, it is still a city, which could tie into another reason as to why so much acid is being built up. It needs to have a stronger scent. It needs to have more acid to then create that stronger scent. This thing has also nearly tripled in size with its mega form, being 14 foot 9 inches or 4.5 meters, with it weighing 276.7 pounds or 125.5 kilograms, which most of that is almost definitely the acid. Now, one thing that excites me the most about this, and this is this is just me being dorky, of course, is that the leaves on its head actually match with the pH scale. Orangish red at the tip, yellow at the middle, and then green at the base, fading into each other as the tips of the leaves are typically closer to the mouth when it does open up and the acid is let out. If you don't know pH paper, it's literally just used to tell how basic or acidic something is, with all three of these colors specifically being in the acidic range. It could also just be, the three colors of leaves as we fade into fall, but I like the pH acid idea most, and I like being a nerd about it, so yeah. As one more note though, I've been told by my old instructors that you can actually taste the nectar on the rim of a pitcher plant. It's supposed to be sweet, but I'm not sure I'm a fan of doing that, and I can't recommend it. Especially, I will say, do not drink what is inside of a pitcher plant. It's just disgusting and a bad idea. There's things that are broken down in that acid. But at least when we flip this big boy mega over, flip it upside down, it has a puffy little smile, which is an antithesis to the usual angry expression we see in Victreebel. And from the moment that it was released, I gotta say, I love me my goofy Pokemon. There's nothing wrong with goofy Pokemon. I like the cool ones too. I like the ones that are given style, the ones that are awesome and cool and just kind of maybe a little bit edgy sometimes, but I gotta have my goofy mons as well. It just makes me feel happy, and I don't have any other way of explaining it other than that. I'm all down for the goof. Our star from space fallen down to Earth, Starmie, has a lot of cultish activity going on and may be part of a much bigger plot. So let's just begin with what we know for a fact. Staryu and Starmie fell from space, or they fall from space, land on Earth, and will use electromagnetic waves to send signals through space and communicate with something we still don't technically know what it is. Might be a Mega Starmie. Who knows? Now, the other interesting thing is that Starmie flat out states that it eats plankton within its Pokédex entries, meaning that it likely does eat the same thing, if not something similar, within whatever place it originates from. With that in mind, they have now populated across the waters of the Pokemon world, with the only places you can't find them being within Hisui and Paldea. Though even with Hisui later in time, we can find them within Sunny Shore and Canalave within Diamond, Pearl, Platinum. So they kind of populate in the future. They crash land in the future. Now, this gets even wilder when we think about how Sunny Shore is fueled completely by solar energy, so they have clear skies, which is perfect for sending out those signals to their families in space. Then with Canalave, it has the #1 library within Sinnoh, which contains an immense amount of myths, history, and even religious literature regarding humanity as a whole for Pokemon, together allowing these Starmie to learn and then send out information easily. Their abilities even play into all of this. Illuminate for the glowing core, which may be biological, natural cure for regeneration, as a starfish would be, and then their hidden ability being analytic, insinuating the great intelligence that it does have if you didn't pick that up from it becoming a psychic type to begin with. And then now it mega evolves. Its movements and overall form have become more human-like, while still having the Starmie on its back. Whether it's simply trying to communicate or wants to supplant humanity is unclear as per its Pokédex. So either, to explain, it is trying to learn how to communicate with us, or it is trying to completely replace humanity as a whole. Both are a lot easier once you have learned a ton about humanity and have taken a form that is supposed to be more familiar to us. You know, 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, nice and easy. It's like wearing a disguise in front of itself, now that I think about it. Now, it is stated Mega Starmie's humanoid appearance may also be a visual pun on Hitore, which is starfish, which can also be translated as human hand, emphasizing the human part of the pun. In fact, these guys look a bit similar to the Starmen from the Mother franchise, and amongst another couple different creatures in a number of different franchises. But these Starmen were friends with the big bad guy Gygus, and had left upon its defeat until they eventually came back and enslaved the world by draping it in infinite darkness. That comparison, again amongst many others, may just be from general alien comparisons or starfish-like ties, so grain of salt that. Mega Starmie's base stat total is also 140 points higher than its non-Mega Evolved form. That makes Starmie one of the 3 Pokemon that gain more than 100 base stat points upon Mega Evolving in Legends ZA, alongside Medicham and Mawile, whose stats were reworked due to the game lacking abilities and likely alludes to it having the ability Huge Power. There's another ability, but I can't remember what it is off of the top of my head, so, you know, I'm sure you guys will tell me in the comments, which I encourage you to do. Now, as a side, the Mega Fights itself for Starmie here had me laughing so hard that I actually died the first time that I went up against it. I love it so much. I love it so much. There's so many. Oh god, I'm getting bopped. Ah! We're still not done yet though, because there is in fact a Starmie Cult as part of side mission 100 within the game. Starmie on High, something you get invited to during the day. Now this quest starts out real odd, a slow zoom on the lady's face, like super duper slow. She thinks you then beamed a thought into her brain, and even if you deny her like I did, she says that No, don't worry about it. You know what? You don't have to worry about the formalities. We are clearly one of them. A trainer who lives in the blessed company of Starmie. Now, she invites us to her next gathering where a group of people will invite the Starmie dwelling among the stars to descend and grace us with their presence. And of course, they all have Starmie as their primary partner Pokemon. It's a BYOS as you bring your own Starmie at night, and she states how Starmie are none other than the very stars themselves. We meet people there who can feel the energy of the universe, cheer star, believe the stars guided us to them, or feel their call. And so we begin with cheering out to call down the Starmie dwelling in the heavens. Star! 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 I don't have the energy to yell like that, and I don't want to blow out your ears. Now, doing so makes all of our hearts one with those of our Starmie, and maybe even the Starmie and the stars, which enhances this connection. And not only does this actually result in a shooting star flying through the sky, but we go visit the location that it fell down from, or onto, find a Starmie, which is supposed to spawn there, but I had never seen one no matter how many times I went until now. And then there is a moonstone sitting on the ground. So, of course, I love all of this. And with cults like this, you can for sure say that Starmie is definitely going to be blending in with society. With one other theory that I might have being that old powers have completely disappeared according to an individual within a city. So, they're gone. That part is not a theory. We know the powers have been given to Mr. Bonding, who should be wandering around all of Kalos, but for him and the powers to just completely disappear is incredibly strange. So there are 5 people, to explain this a little bit better, who wear differently colored shirts, yellow, blue, pink, green, and red, who then give their powers through a ritual, for lack of a better word, and that's literally what it is, to who we know would become Mr. Bonding. Now, people have always suspected that these strange old men were aliens, always, considering their strange ritual, their powers, and their overall habits, what little we do get to see. But when we tie in one more detail, we may have found out that these people are related to our Starmie. Because Starmie states, when the core glows in 7 colors, they are communicating in general. And while we only have 6 colors here, if we include Mr. Bonding, maybe they found their 7th O power and ascended in some capacity. More of a theory, of course, but fun to think about anyway. I do have one final thing from real life to add to this with studies I sourced from National Geographic. There was a big study on starfish published in 2012 and finding out how they function under stress, and it turns out that they do have a preferred way to move themselves. The duo, or the researchers, studied over 1,000 of these little guys and exposed them to various challenges to see how they would react. First, they dropped the animals in a new tank of water, waited for them to crawl away, and noted which arms they led with. Next, they turned the animals over. An upside-down starfish pushes 2 arms against the ground for support and stamps down with the opposite one to flip itself back up. Ji and Wu, the scientists, recorded which arms they led with. Finally, they put the starfish in a shallow tank and dropped an irritating liquid on their backs. Again, as the animals fled, Ji and Wu noted the arms that led the way, and I'll show like the image of the different results here. Now, these 3 challenges revealed that starfish have a hidden bilateral symmetry and move in a preferred direction. That's especially obvious when they face stressful situations, such as fleeing or having to turn themselves over. And for note, we do have bilateral symmetry ourselves, so it may not be so far removed for Mega Starmie and ourselves to be as similar to each other as we might think. Another one you've long seen revealed already is Mega Dragonite, fit with a pearl on its tail, wings on the joints of its body as it attaches near the knee, near the shoulder, and then of course the massive wings on top of its head. While a knee-jerk reaction you might have is to think about our classical, biblically accurate depictions of angels, the real connection I often make with Dragonite's increased speed, the fact that it is a male messenger in the anime as well, makes me think of Greek god Hermes. Now, as with any god, there are a lot of different depictions, meanings, things that they have within their domain. Not the Jujutsu Kaisen one, but the things that Hermes domains over, most familiar with myself, would be athleticism and being a messenger. Though it is also said that he had herds, trade, and thievery under his belt as well. Not only are there depictions of Hermes with wings on his boots, which appear near the same place as Dragonite's wings do, but also there are other depictions of Hermes with a helmet bearing wings as well. Even better than this is that Zeus is the one that granted Hermes godhood. To add to that, what's also a fun tie, even if not intentional, is that Hermes was just a demigod before Zeus granted him said godhood. Just like how Dragonite was already a powerful pseudo-legendary that now reaches even greater heights. Now, while Dragonite isn't typically directly associated with lightning, it is associated with the sea and even storms, especially when we fight it in its mega boss battle, as instead of being our savior, it calls down massive amounts of lightning to strike us down. Dragonite in its Mega Evolution has also taken on features from its previous form Dragonair, such as the pearl on its tail and the wings we've talked about, which apparently act like feelers. Even its shiny allows it though to take on the more Dragonair-like colors. For a real-life connection, this could be compared to Neoteny, also called juvenilization, known as the delaying or slowing of the physiological or somatic development of an organism, typically an animal. Mega Dragonite's speed and strength have increased significantly from its regular form, but the process of Mega Evolution has also deluged its kindness and helpful nature. Its merciful nature makes it prefer to end matches quickly, smiling as it attacks its opponents with powerful techniques. Likewise though, it will also rush to help someone it senses to be in trouble even while it is battling. So rather than dragging out a fight, it will be the one to use their strongest move right off the bat to end the fight quickly. And we could always tie all of this back to the tale of the Korean dragon, otherwise known as the Imugi. These would be lesser dragons often depicted as a giant serpent aspiring to become a full-fledged dragon, but could only do so after living for 1,000 years and capturing a celestial orb called Yoju, I'm gonna hope I said that right, to transform into a full dragon. Now, of course, Dragonair lives in water or caves, just like Imugi is said to, bears its orb as well, and then transforms into Dragonite. But we could always double down on this story by knowing it has to use a Mega Stone that was apparently newly discovered in order for Dragonite to Mega Evolve. What's weird though is not all the other Mega Pokemon are said to be newly discovered, despite being new to us as players. So while other Mega Pokemon have hints as to what their buffs or abilities are, Dragonite is the only one we go completely blind lore-wise into. You know, we'll get hints of, oh, it has a higher special defense, it has a higher defense, and they have a higher attack. Oh, they changed typings. Dragonite, we get nothing. And as seen in the Pokemon Horizon series, episode 107, Mega Dragonite can fire moves like Hyper Beam from the pearl near the tip of its tail. According to Mega Needle Thing's Mega Evolution short in episode 111, it's a lot of megas being said here, Mega Dragonite possesses the power to blast through mountains, causing significant destruction in the process. I've said it in other videos, I'll say it again here. Pokemon power scaling starts with dump trucks and ends with blowing up mountains. But what caught my eye with this was the pose that Dragonite was taking here. And when we take Hermes into account alongside its hospitality, we get the Catechus, perfectly placed with wings on either side, the jewel in the center, and the little serpents could even be Dratini or Dragonair. This about closes Dragonite and all the different things that have inspired it here, but before we continue, I just want to say thank you for watching. Some of the information I found in this video I could not have done without my chat on livestream, and with these being new Pokemon, I'm sure there are tons of theories and other inspirations that I'm gonna miss. I'm only one person at the end of the day, so please let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if I missed anything. Comments and watch time are the best way to support the channel, and if you're going this far into the video, or if you are this far into the video, I do ask that you subscribe so you can enjoy all the other great content I have in store for you. And if you'd like to go the extra mile, become a member on here or Patreon for as little as $3 a month, and it does wonders to assist the channel and the quality of videos. But enough of all that. Thank you again, and on with the video. I cannot express to you just how happy I am that not only did my girl Horseradish the Chikorita come back, but that she also, as Meganium, got a Mega form. And yes, I know it's not a Horseradish. Chikorita is based on the Asian pair, so whatever. But you bet I picked it up as my starter while playing through the game. And soon, I'll be starting up a Nuzlocke, so keep your eyes out for the streams. Back on track though, Mega Meganium goes from a singular geranium flower into a full set of 4 puffy looking flowers that become larger and fading more to white the closer to the base of the neck that they are. There's not a lot special about the flowers themselves, but when we look at Meganium from the top down, not only does it look like a singular flower, but it also seems to resemble, with its antennae, the general shape of Florges. And of course now it has gained the fairy typing, and while that is a good start, it doesn't quite explain how we got here. We could compare it though to the French story called Felicia and the Pot of Pinks, in which the brother of the main character steals a pot of pink flowers from his sister as their father's parting gift to her, and is eventually revealed to be the transformed son of the fairy queen within this story, the Pot of Pinks. It feels a bit loose, but it's still something to consider properly. Another thing we can consider is Ikebana, which is the art of flower arrangement, in which there are some arrangements in which they stack flowers on top of each other. Now, at the end of the day, even if it's none of these, this bad boy looks like a massive solar-powered cannon or dish satellite in some capacity, and acts like one too. Kind of imagine all the colored energy being at the tip and then coming back, becoming more white as it's more concentrated at the base. And as Dex entry states, this Pokemon can fire a tremendously powerful solar beam from its 4 flowers. Another name for this is Mega Sol Cannon. Makes sense as to why it gains so many flowers then, because to make flowers on the body of a plant takes a lot of energy, to the point where some florists in real life would actually cut flowers off before they fully form, because it may cause complications due to, again, the amount of energy it takes to form those flowers. Now, I will say at first I thought its solar beam was faster when it was Mega Evolved because of its Mega Evolution description, but nope. Moves that are upgraded to plus moves are not only stronger, but also generally faster to my knowledge. So theoretically, any plus style solar beam would be just as fast. Now, outside of this, it has little sweepers around its feet, which only make me think that they might be sweeping up nutrients from the ground, while it also has long curling antennae that are, of course, reminiscent of fairy antennae. And at the end of the day, it's simple. I love my giant dinosaur, and you bet I might just have to do a solo run through the game with Horseradish within Lumiose one day, just like it soloed Johto long ago. And honestly, I primarily used Horseradish throughout the entire playthrough. Even when I fought up against Camerupt, it didn't faint, which is wild to think about. For as goofy and dumb as Mega Feraligatr looks, it at least gets points when its second jaw is closed. As it brings the spikes on its arms up to form the lower jaw and the hood clamps down as it bends over to bite at what's in front of it, Mega Feraligatr resembles Totodile, stubby arms and all. Now, this false jaw has a bite force that is 10 times more powerful than Mega Feraligatr's actual jaws, bringing about 10 times, of course, as much power. The problem with this is that it doesn't tell us what that power is whatsoever in any of the Dex entries. So it's kind of an arbitrary number thrown out at the end of the day. And none of the other forms say anything about their bite force either. Not Crocodile, not Totodile, nothing. Though I guess I could compare it to the one time in Paris, France, where a Nile crocodile was captured by firefighters in the sewers below the Pont Neuf Bridge on March 7th, 1984. The crocodile was named Eleanor and lived at the aquarium in Vans and died in May of 2022, which, that crocodile is older than me. That is a 38-year-old crocodile at minimum. Now, crocodiles living in sewers is more cryptozoology, a myth, if you would. Though things making their way in the sewers isn't unheard of. But we don't see Totodile anywhere except for within Wild Zone 20 within the game. Naturally, wild alligators and crocodiles are also not a thing whatsoever in France at all, but there are 2 different zoos that I could find, there's probably more, within France. One being Planète des Crocodiles and Alligator Bay, both housing a ridiculous number of different reptiles within their facilities inside of a tropical simulated environment. In other words, Totodile, at least in the wild, was more than likely an escapee or may have been raised within a similar facility before they were handed over as a starter Pokemon, which is pretty much what happens to starter Pokemon to begin with, or at least that's what's shown to exist with Pokemon like Sprigatito in the Horizons anime. Honestly, the only last bit of info that we could loosely tie all this to, especially with this hood that it has, is the fact that it does cover its face completely, and likely being related in some capacity to the Nile crocodile with its appearance, that we could say it might have some Sobek inspirations. They were an Egyptian deity associated with the Nile crocodile and was associated with pharaoh-based power, fertility, and military prowess, and that doesn't really feel like it ties all that well. So maybe we take our toilet-capped mouse trap Pokemon, agree that it looks more like Totodile or a cartoonish dinosaur, and we move on with our lives. Mega Skarmory is the only one that made me go, huh. Yeah, I guess that's a Mega. Like, don't get me wrong, it's sharper, more intimidating, and goes from silver to gold while gaining ski shoes that are shaped like little Ys, you know, the shape, the letter Y. All very fitting for this Pokemon. And as a side note, every Mega Pokemon is confirmed to, in some way, resemble the letter X or the letter Y in their design, even in Legends ZA. But moving on with Skarmory, there are a ton of reasons as to why it may be gold here. It originated in the Silver and Gold games. Many of its inspirations are also said to be silver or bronze, so it completes the trio by being gold. This extends into the Stymphalian birds that Skarmory has been compared to a number of times by other people, which we may as well talk about their story. Now, the Stymphalian birds are man-eating birds with beaks of bronze, sharp metallic feathers they could launch at their victims, and they would also have poisonous dung. Now, these creatures fly against those who come to hunt them, wounding and killing them with their beaks. All armor of bronze or iron that men wear is pierced by these birds. But if they weave a garment of thick cork, the beaks of the Stymphalian birds are caught in the cork garment, just as the wings of small birds stick in bird lime. These birds are of the size of a crane and are like the ibis, but their beaks are more powerful and not crooked like that of the ibis. Ironically, these Stymphalian birds actually died from Hercules' arrows, which were tipped with Hydra poison, and Skarmory here is a steel type, so that problem has been resolved. Also, I kind of can't imagine Skarmory's beak getting stuck in a corkboard. Skarmory's dex entry states it flies faster than the speed of sound, which really isn't all that impressive considering a lot of Pokemon do that, but after whipping up shockwaves to send enemies flying, it finishes them off with its talons. Kind of imagine it doing that as if it was just flying at them in the middle of the air and just ripping them apart. Now, honestly, the only other viable tie that I could find at this point is that we find Skarmory and an Alpha Pyroar with its pride within Area 17, and both would of course relate back to the heraldry through the Cook of Galois, if I mess up French, I'm so sorry, and the Lion of Normandy. We'll get to that second one later. Galois is from Gallic or Gallus, with that last one meaning rooster, and France being called Gaul in the past then makes a huge national pun. Now, I have to specifically thank Memento Mortem for a big chunk of these last couple of points, because they brought it forward to me during that stream I talked about, especially with this next part that I'm quoting directly from them. Not to mention, the lion used to be the heralds of the monarchy, and the rooster was picked up by the French revolutionaries to represent the people, and Skarmory is always flying overhead Wild Zone 17. And adding in Mawile as the guillotine in that area, maybe the whole zone is a French Revolution reference. That ZA complete ecology video is gonna go wild. Anywho, there are a ton of possible references to Skarmory. It's a little vague, but in the most basic sense, it really does just capitalize on being very intimidating in its new form, red eyes and all. From Yuki Onna to Taka Onna, we have Froslass representing both of these yokai. Sounds like a joke, and to be entirely fair, it is a little bit of wordplay. so nobody should be too surprised it actually went this way. Nevertheless, this multi-layered kimono-wearing Pokemon is pretty great in its design. Actually, if you wanted another pun, Yuki and Taka can be combined to say Yukitaka, which is real close to Yukata, which is, in design, basically a more casual kimono. But there is nothing casual here, as the more layers a kimono may have, the more regal or important the individual is seen to be, or the occasion. This doesn't mean that this is reserved strictly for the royalty either. Messengers for the royals, high-class speakers, and pretty much any other individual that you would consider important may have more and more layers, though there's some differences between the past and the present. Now, this does not hit the same level of influence or layering as the most intricate kimono or even the level that Celesteela has. I say this because Celesteela is incredibly inspired by Kaguya-hime, otherwise known as the Moon Princess. You could argue that while Froslass has one layer, maybe two, Mega Froslass has an elongated kimono and has 3 or 4 layers, and Celesteela can then be argued to have 8 in total, with no other Pokemon set to compare to these kimono layers. There are some fun snowflake and ice decor on Mega Frostlass's dressing to match our ice typing, but how about we talk about the Yuki Onna and the Taka Onna inspirations with the assistance from friends over at yokai.com. Yuki Onna prey on travelers lost in the heavy snowstorms that blanket the Japanese Alps in winter. They have an otherworldly beauty with long black hair and dark piercing eyes. Their skin is ageless and as white as snow, but their bodies are as cold as ice. A mere touch is enough to give a human a deep, unshakable chill. They feed on life force, sucking it from human mouths with an icy breath that freezes their victims solid. There's even one story, being one of the earliest versions that were told, where a man actually married the Yuki Onna who was in disguise. She was beautiful, a phenomenal wife, and they had multiple children together, though he broke his promise to this demon who had demanded he never tell anyone that he had seen it long ago when it killed his friend. So now in the modern day, many years later, he tells his wife, having not told anyone else, not knowing that it was the Yuki Onna, who then transforms and tells him that he's a liar, and the only reason he continues to live at this moment after breaking his promise to her is because they have children together. Were he to ever harm them in any way, she will then kill him without hesitation. This then explains the hair, which I had not even realized looked like a bridal veil because of their marriage together. In fact, without Pokesutami, I would not have known what I'm about to say. The kimono is primarily based on a wedding kimono, that it is almost literally getting married within this form, this mega form, now that it has the full length of a wedding kimono. And I highly recommend checking out her channel. She's been around a long time and completing a lot of translations since before she created a YouTube channel. And if I may double down, I especially recommend not only her, but also Geek Ecology, as they created a video with a full team recently where they not only translated part of the Pokemon official ecology book, but also explained real-life connections on how marine life swims in Pokemon and the real world. And they'll be working on some more parts soon enough, breaking down that entire ecology book, so don't wait for me to go cover anything in that book. Go check their channels out, I ask of you. Now, I won't share the whole story of the Yuki Onna, as I've talked about Froslass plenty in other videos, but that whole idea that I already mentioned should give you everything you need to know for our basis of this Pokemon. But next, again, we can add in the other inspiration of the Taka Onna. Taka Onna appear as ordinary, homely human women most of the time, but they have the power to elongate their bodies and grow to several meters in height, which actually kind of happened to that original story now that I think about it. Like other brothel yokai, they are rarely seen outside of the red light districts, but are fairly common yokai nonetheless. Sightings of these yokai peaked during the Edo period and continued up to the post-war period, the time when brothels and yukaku, pleasure districts, were at their height in Japan. And you know what this makes me think of? Daki from Demon Slayer, with her disguise being an Orin, actually, otherwise known as the highest ranking courtesan during Japan's Edo period. Oran were known for beauty, intelligence, and training in a number of traditional arts like music, dance, and calligraphy, though the largest difference between the Orion and Geisha was that they were not doing anything naughty, if you catch my drift. Now, to drive all of this home, we even get the full demon horns that it now has, reminiscent of Oni on Froslass, completing her look to show what she is truly inspired by through and through. Also, I realized that was a little redundant of me. Oni is demon after all, but oh well. Before we do go, I also wanted to tie the appearance of Kage Otsutsuki from Naruto just because the appearances really do drive home together, but to be entirely fair, when you have a tall, high-class, traditional-style kimono-wearing demon, the designs are gonna start mixing together. Nothing wrong with that. It's actually really cool when we get to see how, no matter how much things diverge, when you use the same inspirations, all these roads kind of lead back to Rome. Actually, I lied to you. The last but surprisingly bit of info to talk about is the Pokedex entry itself. This Pokemon can use eerie cold air imbued with ghost energy to freeze even insubstantial things such as flames or the wind. Yeah, that is an absolute anomaly, because it is exactly as the deck states. Those are not physical things, which makes it even cooler, I actually have to admit. Though, to explain it a little bit better, fire is a process, and so is wind, essentially. Fire is the process of combustion, a release of energy visible to our eyes. You stop the combustion, you stop the fire. Meanwhile, wind is basically just the movement of air itself, usually by differences in atmospheric pressure, which are aided or abetted by the sun's uneven heating. Then it just becomes a much larger process by all the mixing and moving that it does throughout the world and the seasons, creating the large and trackable movements that, well, we can track. There's honestly no scientific explanation to Froslass's ability. It just literally is able to freeze energy itself, which is a wild concept to think about. The demon pig from Journey to the West becomes even more demon piggier, and now it even bears the markings of a full-on emperor. I mean, look at the headdress it now bears. If you've never seen it anywhere else, I at least guarantee you've seen it when Zuko from Avatar was crowned emperor. Brandishing a blazing flame shaped like a serpentine spear, it rushes in to rescue its imperiled allies. So it's not an emperor that constantly sits on their butts and instead does join the fight. I'll actually talk about exactly what Bulbapedia has, as they put it really well. Ken Sugimori has said that Tepig, Pignite, and Emboar were designed in a Chinese style, specifically mentioning the character of Zhang Fei from Romance of the Three Kingdoms as Emboar's inspiration. Zhang Fei was assassinated by his own subordinates and had his head severed and presented for the opposing faction, which may be alluded to in Emboar's design, as its head is quote-unquote separated from its body by a wreath of fire. The wreath of fire also resembles a cape or a scarf. Emboar may also be based on Zubaije, a pig demon from the Chinese tale Journey to the West. Superior, Emboar, and Samurot's evolutionary lines are collectively based on Western, Chinese, and Japanese culture respectively, to represent the diversity of the Unova region. So that completes our base design, but then with Mega Emboar, it now bears the Zhanglong serpent spear that Zhang Fei did bear in battle. That was approximately 4.3 meters long, but historically there are no actual sources for Zhang Fei using such a spear, probably only for romance that was it fabricated for. However, historical record in the Jinshu, a warlord named Shen An is said to have wielded such a snake spear. The Eastern Han Dictionary, Shai Ming, writes, a spear, a zhang, and a qi long is called shuo. It is wielded from horseback. The spear tip of the Zhangba snake spear is made of iron, wuji steel. The forging process is 100 times steel folding technique. But why the snake? Why the serpent? Well, that's because they actually didn't have the same evil connotation that they have in other cultures around the world. Instead, snakes may be considered benevolent creatures, individuals that represent creation and procreation, even a warning to what may come as a bit of an omen. Think of it similar to how Absol is an omen, appearing to us, warning us of what is to come, which, as a side note, also explains why Absol is the first rogue mega evolution that we run into within the games, a sign of the soon-to-come horrors, but we'll get to those horrors far, far later in this video. For now, let's get back to Emboar, whose body now looks like the flames make a sort of mask or a face on the front, demonic in form with jagged teeth and horns around the shoulder and collar of Mega Emboar. We could simply chalk this up as a cartoonish demonic face, but I would also like to compare it to a Hellmouth. A Hellmouth, or the Jaws of Hell, is the entrance to Hell, envisioned as the gaping mouth of a huge monster, an image that first appeared in Anglo-Saxon art and then spread all over Europe. Now, I got to see one of these about a year or so ago and actually walk through it, which is pretty cool because I didn't even realize that it would become relevant here with Mega Emboar, but also with G-Max Gengar's design when I talked about it long ago. Now, even its back, Mega Emboar, has a clearer face, but it looks far cuter to me, I have to admit, which with a friendlier look and even the super long tail it now has, it may actually be a way to show companionship with allies, easing them and their nerves while also scaring the enemy with the front side of Mega Emboar. Think of it like when you raise a flag. When you see an enemy flag, you get scared, you know you have to prepare for battle. But when you see the flag of your own country, or if you see the flag of your own army, whatever you want to say, you should hopefully feel happy, you should feel safe, you should feel secure, and know that you're gonna be good. Now, I don't really have a comparison elsewise for this backside other than the red Dr. Mario virus, but that's definitely a stretch, even if it also has the same yellow cute eyes. Now, I do find it interesting that Mega Emboar's tusks are now rounded while its regular form has fully sharp tusks. It's almost as if using them too little has dulled them, and now it has to rely on that spear it now has. Alternatively, while we know it battles in the game, it may be symbolic of emperors rarely or never seeing battle in their greater age, dulling their teeth and making them rely on other means or weapons, the serpent spear in this case. Now lastly, apparently there are a number of wild boars that can be found throughout France, particularly in wooded areas amongst others, and it's because of human influence once again, explaining why Tepig is even here to begin with. From CNRS News, I have the following. Once rare in the French countryside, the wild boar is now considered a nuisance to be actively hunted. The ecologist Raphael Mathivet explains how wild boar populations have been growing since the 1970s and asks the question, what have we done to this wild animal? The next part's a bit of an interview with the person asking, hey, you're an ecologist and a geographer at CEFE Research Center in Ecology and Evolutionary Ecology, and with Romeo Bondon, you recently completed a book entitled Singuliers, Géographies d'un animal politique, wild boars, the geography of a political animal. What made you take an interest in this unpopular creature? And he states only 50 years ago, the wild boar was hardly ever spotted, the very definition of a wild species. It fascinated naturalists and hunters alike. The latter liked to test their courage by taking on this fierce, dangerous creature which would attack their dogs without hesitation. In Greek mythology, fighting a wild boar was actually one of the 12 labors of Hercules. Today, the animal seems to be everywhere, on the roadsides and even in our towns. Everywhere we go for our ecological research, from the Alps to the Cevennes mountains to the Camargue wetlands, people are constantly telling us about wild boars and the damage they cause. Disputes also arise, for example, with hunting associations, accusing protected areas of being refuges for wild boars. These are no longer seen as a wild species, but rather as an indistinct mass that must be regulated through more intensive tracking and hunting. No one seems to be interested in wild boars. No one, not even the naturalists, stands up for them, as in the case of bears or wolves. We wanted to understand how their status could have changed so quickly and what it says about our relationship with nature. So in other words, humans have brought Tepig into Kalos, which may end up with the same exact situation or same problem we run into, especially as, once again, Area 20 is the only place where we find it amongst all the other starters, to be fair. And I'll be real with you. As much as I love my baby Horseradish's Mega, I think it's safe to say that the enhancements made to Emboar in its Mega form are definitely the coolest of our trio. I hope you don't get tired of armies, generals, and kings anytime soon, because Excadrill's Mega has arrived, and it is absolutely, partially, a reference to a knight's getup. By just looking at the actual body of Excadrill, you can say it is wearing the hood covering that would go under armor, with only the face exposed. Alternatively, you could say it is similar to that of a chainmail hood, but there is one more comparison that would arguably be the most apt of the three. This would be the welder's mask, a nice covering to help keep a welder's face safe from sparks or even just from the bright light that occurs from welding things together. Gotta protect your peepers after all. We can confirm this with knowing that Mega Excadrill drops the hood above its face, which is also part of the drill, and brings its arms together to form the full massive drill that it now has. And I mean it when I say that this drill is massive, because Excadrill is about 2'11" or 0.9 meters now, and that drill is definitely longer than its body. Its dex entry states that if this Pokemon brings its arms and head together to form a streamlined shape and spins at high speeds, it can destroy anything. So I imagine a lot of sparks kind of coming off whatever it hits. Not only that, but said drill is fully spiraled, which is perfect for some heavy duty work while allowing it to be a bit closer in its design to the excavating drill that it may be named after. And don't worry, OSHA, it's wearing all of its protective equipment while even having shoulder pads. What does weird me out, though, is that it has a triangle, like, right on its chest, which I can only assume is another bit of protection, or at least as a guide as to what direction it's facing. I'm honestly not really all that sure. It might just be the equivalent to the craft singles that they just kind of slap on Pokemon such as Fuecoco. The Pokemon, though, likes the drill, and so it became a more powerful drill. What more could you want? Though, why it's even here is probably what you're asking, and just like many places, mining is pretty important in the history of places, or of Paris here. And we can thank the catacombs of Paris for that, because there was an immense amount of mining that was done for limestone, gypsum, and a number of other materials in terms of natural resources. Though, due to just how much was done, how much mining was done, and how poorly it was all documented, it all became incredibly dangerous and even started causing sinkholes within the city long ago. As such, in 1777, the mines were mapped and reinforced, eventually leading to the creation of the Paris catacombs, which of course then housed the city's overflowing cemeteries at the time. Huge history of mining within Paris, especially with those catacombs, but as a final note before moving on, it does make me a little bit sad that while we had a great little section for the sewers in the game, we didn't get the catacombs at all. They could have shoved a bunch of ghost-type Pokemon there instead of in the cemetery above ground, but it's not the end of the world, I suppose, and I can forgive it. Alright, originally I had Mega Dragonite on the thumbnail until I figured that one spoiler Mega a few weeks after the release of the game would be just fine. And I mean, I already loved Scolipede because it takes my fear of centipedes and made it look cool, amazing, and actually made me like it. And now they turned it into a warhorse. I'm hardly kidding either, as Scolipede already looked a bit horse-like with the way that it stands, but now we have the frontal armor that is very reminiscent of armor that horses would wear into battle. And it turns out its equine appearance may be derived from a pun on the Japanese word for millipede, yasude. The word contains the kanji, which literally means horse. And to take it further, this armor actually bears a number of false eyes on it to scare off anybody stupid enough to even try to sneak up on it. And it is even shaped like armor that a person would wear around their torso. So there's a lot going on already. Its powerful form is fit with not only extended spikes from what it already had on its head and on its tail, but all those glowing parts are actually its bioluminescent venom. This venom even affects Scolipede's mind, honing its already existent viciousness. This Pokemon is already the type to chase down prey relentlessly and stab it with their horns, followed by repeatedly and violently slamming them into the ground over and over again before finishing them off with their poison, as per the dex entries. I don't think it needed to become any more vicious, but here we are, I guess. Something I had actually never noticed before was that the claws on its neck, in its normal form, were already used to grab prey and hold them until they stopped moving. And that means you are face to face with this terrifying demon. And what likely happened here then is that it gained this extra armor in order to protect itself from anyone who could attack it while it held the prey so close to its body. In addition, said armor is another form of that neoteny we described with Dragonite, as the armor is basically what we would see as Whirlipede. Technically, you could consider this atavism, which is a modification of a biological trait structure or behavior, whereby an ancestral genetic trait reappears after having been lost through evolutionary changes in its previous generations, which is, I guess, a little bit more fitting for this Pokemon since it literally goes through evolution or metamorphosis, with Whirlipede actually being its cocoon. As for that bioluminescent venom, there are a number of creatures that exist that do have bioluminescence, with a number of venomous creatures also displaying this trait. We can find jellyfish, scorpions, and a couple of other creatures. It's a little hard to know exactly why they have this trait, but it could simply be due to certain creatures being able to see the bioluminescence better or more naturally than you and I can. And with such an unnatural seeming or obvious color, it's like us seeing yellow or red. It's a sign to stay away, because remember, if God didn't hide it from us, we should be running away from it. I'm not really sure why the venom is changing the way Scolipede acts, but it could just be that Scolipede knows it's more powerful and as such is more apt to be more vicious in battle to really take advantage of its new abilities. Unless we have a whole new Slowking Venom situation, but I'll leave that up to your discretion. The Pokemon that is literally called the Hoodlum Pokemon gets a hood, which it actually is shown to have in the anime, but instead of it looking more aggressive, it actually looks far more chill. Though that is just a farce, as it is said to be just as feisty as it always is. Now, Scraggy has shed its skin. That skin is rubbery and stretchy, and once it is completely stretched out, it evolves into Scrafty. From there, they may use the hood as stated, but now that it has Mega evolved, the skin turns white as normal shed skin might in an animal, and it becomes tougher and more supple, which rubber itself is already fairly supple to my understanding, but you do you, I guess. If it becomes even more supple, it just means that it can be moved even more easily, and with more grace, becoming more flexible. In other words, instead of stretching it out and watching it quickly retract, it can be formed a little bit differently. This would then explain why the clothing is a bit more like a jacket. In fact, its jacket is very inspired by Naveen's jacket. And this allows me to take an interesting side tangent about Mega Evolution that may need its own video one day as part of how it works. Because when you look at every Mega Evolution, their natural traits and behaviors are made stronger. Lucario gets a stronger battle spirit or stronger aura. Houndoom gets stronger flames and is more aggressive. And Tyranitar is so sure that it can't be harmed that its armor splits open. Even in this game, we get a Starmie with longer legs, which is reminiscent of Dancers, and of course, Lita, who has a Starmie as her partner Pokemon. And that's something I actually did not mention earlier. In other words, Mega Evolution not only pulls their evolutions from their own traits, but also from those that are most similar to them. Those that match behaviors or styles, those who are most likely to be their partners. And of course, this can be influenced by the keystones that trainers bear. I'll have to break down Rogue Megas and how Mega Evolution even works at some point, but back to Mega Scrafty. Because very similar to how Naveen is all about fashion, our Mega here takes inspiration from that fashion trend of having holes in its clothing, which, I'll be real, that's an odd fashion trend for me. That's just me growing up poor and not replacing clothing that, I should replace. I think I wore pants with a hole kind of like near the inner thigh for a while at one point, because it was in a place where nobody could actually see it, especially when I wore a jacket. This probably all made me sound really old, but oh well. Now, it's also got a hole for its tail, which is really cute and completes its look, as it now further resembles what a leopard gecko would look like when they shed their skin all at once, which makes them look like they're wearing a whitish hoodie or a onesie. It's actually pretty cute, unless you imagine that they're being eaten by a ghost of their former selves. Time for one of my favorite new Megas, Eelektross. I did not see it getting a Mega by a long shot, but the second that I saw it, I was immediately bought and made room for it on my team. I always found Tynamo to be incredibly cute, and its evolutions are creepy but really cool. And at least within ZA, Eelektross is kinda goofy because abilities don't exist. And to show that this Pokemon doesn't have Levitate as its ability, it just runs like an absolute goober on the ground while you can hear its fins plopping against said ground with every movement. Now though, in its Mega form, it generates 10 times the electricity it did before Mega evolving. It discharges this electricity from its false electric, which are made of mucus. This mucus floats alongside it, as it does float in this form, but it's still not immune to ground type moves. And honestly, not a big deal, because this bad boy was hidden like a truck for me in my playthrough, which, yes, all the streams are on the channel, but I might have to make a very special version explaining the complete Legends ZA story while throwing my playthrough in there as a very special kind of quote-unquote supercut. But again, with this Pokemon and its floating arms of mucus, their mouths do form the plus and minus symbols, which are, of course, associated with positive and negative charges. Also, kept associating these false forms with how lamprey would look in their horrifying white forms, but there is another apt comparison to be made here with the hagfish. These are close relatives of lampreys, known to produce copious amounts of viscous white mucus when agitated for self-defense. And again, I quote directly from National Geographic. The secret might just be the ability to ooze slime from your pores. The defense tactic has worked for the hagfish, an eel-like animal that looks like an oversized tapeworm. Exactly how to classify the hagfish, also called slime eels, is debated among scientists who see it as either a vertebrate or invertebrate. When a predator chomps down on the creature, it releases slime made of mucus proteins that expand when mixed with salt water. The slime sets quickly, often choking whatever unlucky predator has grasped it, and in case slime doesn't do the trick, hagfish also have a nightmarish 4 rows of large, jagged teeth which they can use to take a bite out of the attacker. So yeah, this slippery big guy is very, very well protected and will be doing plenty of damage to its enemies with its bites, or at least when it comes to my electric named Gigawatt, it will be doing plenty of damage with its punches. Though once again, we have to ask, why are they in our fantasy version of France? Because sea lamprey are actually considered a valuable species there, a traditional delicacy, and is a species threatened with extinction within France itself, or at least through the most recent articles that I could find. So hopefully we don't actually see that happen in the real world, or for our electric lamprey we have here. Chandelure gets the grand ballroom treatment as it mega evolves into a full, grandiose, palladial chandelier. And to be entirely honest, I tried looking up French chandeliers and I felt like an idiot because I never realized that chandelier originates from the French word for candle, which is chandelle. Oops. But once again, this gives us another great reason as to why our Chandelure from Unova is a Pokemon that now gets a Mega form within Kalos. When we look at it from above, we can clearly see that it has 12 arms, making it look similar to a strange clock. And of course, it has a spout of flame coming out of the top of its head, and while its original form would absorb spirits, burning them up and leaving only the body behind, we have a bit of a different story going on now. One of its eyes is a window linking our world with the afterlife, which explains why only one eye is actually lit up as the original yellow color currently. Which then leads me to a real interesting point, and that is that each of our, even if only temporary, immortals keep one of their eyes covered. Again, I say immortals, but they are only known to be momentarily immortal, which is a bit of an oxymoron, but bear with me. Because Kogita, Volo, AZ, and Lysander all have something covering their eye most of the time, or keeping an eye shut most of the time. Just food for thought, and maybe another video. Now, this Pokemon draws in hatred and converts it into power, which is actually hilarious because Gwyn is someone who has this Pokemon as her ace and is an absolute introvert while also seeming to really dislike being around people, maybe even hating being around people normally. She's a bit curt, blunt, to the point overall, really giving her the black cat personality. But she's not a bad person. It's just funny to imagine her strong negative emotions fueling her Mega Chandelure into existence. It's a pretty simple Pokemon that has ultimately just become a greater symbol of fanciness and wealth and the afterlife and death and whatever else you really want to say. We finally got our Mega Kalos starters and they're behind online competitive. I'm not a fan of that, but oh well. Let's talk about them anyway because the designs are pretty ballin', I have to admit. beginning with the newly crowned king that is Chesnaught, with its inspiration being first and foremost from chestnuts. We can look at chestnuts as a whole and see how they have the hairiness around their shell, which is translated into our Pokemon and its extended cape of hair here, though it is more accurate to describe these hairs as burrs, considering that's exactly what they are, which allow the seed to attach to the fur or hair of animals and allows them to be dispersed farther distances safely. Mega Chesnaught's outer shell and body experience a significant increase in defensive capabilities due to Mega Evolution. The fur on its body has grown to the extent that it functions as an impact-absorbing cloak. With newfound confidence in its ability to withstand any attacks, it exhibits a steadfast spirit and a level-headed personality, something that is very fitting of a strong king. But even cooler than this is that its shield-like shoulder armor can transform into destructive weapons. When it removes a piece of its incredibly tough shoulder armor, spikes extend from the shield to form an axe-like weapon with a long handle. The axe head is so heavy that even Mega Chesnaught's brute strength can't easily wield it with one hand. However, gripping it with both hands allows it to use this weapon with precision to overpower its foes. The look that Chesnaught has overall is also incredibly reminiscent of Don Krieg from One Piece. Same shoulder pauldrons, same ability to turn those pauldrons into an effectively massive axe, and instead of creating large blasts with his impacts, it can withstand massive blasts or attacks from others. Mega Chesnaught also has an opposite disposition to Don Krieg. In fact, with its newfound power and even greater defensive capabilities, it will defend others at all costs. So, this long-caped and large-bearded king is truly earning his place on the throne. So, hopefully that ensures that no French Revolution would be necessary and this king doesn't need to be beheaded. Delphox says beards aren't just for wizards, but for witches too, as they break the gender norm. And I gotta admit, I love all three of these Megas, even though we haven't talked about the last one yet. But Mega Delphox is the one that might convince me to at least try to get its Mega Stone. I mean, come on. It's literally riding a flaming broom by standing on it, while also having two extra flaming wands that it controls and gets not just a beard on its face, but also a fur tabard on its chest. It's amazing. Mega Evolution has enhanced Mega Delphox's psychic abilities as well. Its fighting style consists of disorienting onlookers with its magic, all the while remaining calm and collected, enabling it to deliver precise blows to dazzled opponents. The two lit branches that float beside it move by their own accord as if they were alive, but can be skillfully controlled by Mega Delphox, allowing it to coordinate moves with them and even combine their flames to the ones it spits from its mouth into a massive, all-consuming fireball. I did not ask you how big the room is. I said I cast Fireball. Now, for the relevance as to why witches are even here, it is stated that the first recorded witch trial in Paris was held in 1390, resulting in the conviction and burning of two women, Margot de la Barre and Marion I'm not even going to say that last name, for sorcery. Another case in the same year, which is sometimes cited as the first, involved Jean de Brigg, who was also burned at the stake after being convicted of witchcraft. Both cases were heard at the Châtelet court. Now, take the burning at the stake with a grain of salt, because burnings, drownings, and a couple of other methods have kind of been questioned as to whether or not they specifically occurred, but make no mistake, women were absolutely wrongly murdered in those times, all for the sake of political and economical gain, as they got rid of anyone who might try to protest against what men in power were doing at the time. So, I'd like to imagine Mega Delphox walks in and everyone loses their minds now that a real witch is in town. Forget the proper level of stealth. Instead, let's make a giant Naruto shuriken and ride under it as it flies around. Mega Greninja here just pretends to be that shuriken shadow as it continues to spin at high speeds to sustain airtime and carry our froggy friend. This is all because Mega Evolution has significantly enhanced Mega Greninja's reflexes, and it is now showcasing the confidence it has with its capabilities. By intentionally revealing itself, it provokes opponents into attacking, and its sharp reflexes enable it to both react accordingly and strike first. It is said the mere sight of Mega Greninja clinging to its giant water shuriken is able to distract opponents, allowing it to preemptively render them unable to attack by binding them with its long tongue. Once its opponents are immobilized, it charges at them to strike with its massive shuriken. And I'll admit it, if I saw a frog flying under a giant water shuriken from above me, I would freeze as well. I don't know what I'd do other than that. Either that or I would maybe, sigh, because let's be real. Living in the world of Pokemon has to have you prepared for surprises like this sometimes. Just the most exhausted sigh I could muster. This is actually kind of wild because Battle Bond in the anime is distinctly stated multiple times over to be separate from Mega Evolution by all types of professionals and just random people, or main characters, I should say. This lines up pretty well with knowing Mega Crystals then are consumed by a Pokemon and then can become a Mega Stone inside of them, and the whole idea of Mega Energy originating from Xerneas and Yveltal is all a part of this. More specifically Xerneas, but again, that's all gotta come out in a different video. Maybe the next video. Nevertheless, instead of being like the Battle Bond, where it is formed from the energy created between the connection of trainer and Pokemon in a singular sense, in a synergistic sense, we now have this Mega form for Greninja derived from Mega Energy itself. Theoretically, if someone could control the sheer amount of energy coursing between them, you could have an Alpha perform Battle Bond, have it Mega, and then just throw in a Z move for good measure, because why not? A little nod to the people who know what's happening later on in this video, by the way. Now, of course, I wasn't kidding about the shadow thing either, because Greninja does become mostly cloaked in black, where other blue colors would normally be, allowing it to actually blend in better, because ninjas weren't actually all about just wearing black and running around. In fact, that would probably break their cover real fast. Instead, they were wearing dark navy blue clothing, it is said, if they were ever really dressed up as their scouts, but were otherwise then disguised as common folk in order to blend in way better. After all, you can't hear all the rumors and news you want to hear unless you're able to get close to the people you want to hear it from. And I will admit, I find it interesting that it is writing on a 6-pointed star. That could just be related back to lily pads and the flowers that they bear, but it should still potentially make you think of any religious origins it might have. But that might be a stretch, and instead we look at the symbolism of frogs in Paris. During the 17th century, it was used to refer to the Jesuit and the Dutch. Brewer's Dictionary of Phrase and Fable traces the use of the word frogs for the French to both the eating of frogs' legs and the fleur de lis, the French heraldic device which was sometimes described as 3 frogs or toads saluting. A fleur de lis, eh? Something we've not only associated with the French royalty and Kalos, but also see in the abyssal ruins of Unova. We may very well have to revisit the world of Pokemon all around and see where AZ has traveled now that my prediction came true, and it was confirmed that he didn't just disappear after using the ultimate weapon. Again, back to Mega Greninja here, it's all a simple nod back to Ash's Greninja, of course. You could say it is also a nod to Naruto and his giant shuriken if you want to, and is overall a real simple design that fits really well for this Pokemon. Not for one that a lot of people really dislike, and I don't blame you, but I knew Pyroar's Mega was on its way, and I was a bit surprised this is all that they did. When it popped into existence in front of me, I immediately could see the obvious kanji right in front of us. The man now going from the shape of a heraldic symbol and transforming into the full kanji for fire, which I'm technically wrong when I exclaim that on stream as well. It is more specifically the kanji for flame, not fire. Rengoku, I have failed you. Now, the problem that many people might have with this is that the male and female become the same Mega form. And when it comes to general design, yeah, I would love for there to be a second form of our Lady Pyroar Mega out there, but when we take this into the effective ecology, you may already know that the lionesses are the ones who really do most of the work. Taking care of babies, hunting, teaching, you name it. The male is pretty lackadaisical all in all, and sure, they might still hunt and fight ferociously, it's definitely trying to chill a lot more than the rest of the pride. And as I was looking at the design, you can see a mixing of traits from both male and female Pyroar. But a key detail that caught my eye was the facial markings, or were the facial markings. The eyes are inflamed upwards in dark eyeshadow, and there are red lines extending down and out, making it look like a mask of sorts. This made me then think of Kabuki theater masks, which are of course from Kabuki theater, which was practiced or performed within traditional Japanese theaters. And boy, does this make me miss one of the few classes I truly loved theater, because we explored Shakespeare, Kabuki, No, and my instructor had a treasure trove of literature in his room. He and my film instructors were all the key to helping me become who I am to this day, so this kind of just hit a soft spot for me. But anywho, while Kabuki was from Japan, in the modern day there is the Japanese festival. More specifically, actually, in 2018, there was a Japanese cultural celebration within Paris, which offered exhibitions and performances ranging in scope from the work of the Jomon period, or Yomon period, which, much to my surprise, Japan and France apparently have a long-standing relationship and have had it since the 1858 Treaty of Amity and Commerce between France and Japan, which was signed in the Edo period on October 9th, 1858. This would then even help us explain why in the world Lumiose Museum has actual relics from the Edo period of Pokemon, which would be within Hisui, more specifically those relics being from Hisui. And I have a whole video on that as the first Legends video I released if you want to check out the museum video. The final point that ties this together is Onagata, male actors who play female roles in Kabuki theater because women were banned for a number of years from it, which would then explain why both of them have the same form in their Mega Evolution. It still deserves a secondary evolution, or a secondary one just for the female, you know, just to make it cool. Give it something cool. The difference between a villain and a supervillain is presentation. And whoa boy, is Mega Malamar here to present with flashy colors and everything. Now, we already know Malamar has the capacity to be pretty freaking evil, hypnotizing people and Pokemon to do their bidding. Though there really are only 3 instances in which Malamar has actually done something evil. 2 of those being when a trio of them traveled from the future to the present day and were preparing to change the world to become an environment best fit for Malamar, meaning it would kill off every other creature. The last instance that we are fully aware of, at least, is here with our Mega Malamar. It possesses greatly enhanced psychic powers, allowing it to go beyond simple hypnosis and overwrite the personalities and memories of its targets, making them act entirely different. We get the perfect example of this with its reveal trailer. It causes people to obsess over it, openly call it their best friend, abandon their favorite Pokemon, and act overall in favor of the Malamar that hypnotized them. Though at first, it at least seems as though the trainer who had this Mega Malamar is unaffected, but this is not always the case, because its haughty personality makes it see others, including Pokemon trainers, as pawns, and it may even hypnotize its own trainer if it disagrees with their commands. This can extend so far as causing the trainer to just be a pawn completely as they train up a team purely of Malamar, as we see in yet another teaser for this dastardly Pokemon. And it does all of this on purpose. It's known to be highly intelligent, preferring to battle with efficiency, and using its powerful intellect to calmly analyze any situation it may be involved within. And if the power it has wasn't enough, it'll just take those glowing, pointed tendril rave sticks it has and stick them into its own brain in order to boost psychic power through physical stimulation. I don't think it's in pain, but with the way its body undulates, I'm honestly not too sure. This thing has the supervillain collar, normally looks like a flower from behind, and kinda looks like the way Lumiose Tower looked in the past when upside down. But that's gotta all be more of a coincidence than anything other than the supervillain collar, of course. All the colors are exactly what you would expect as well, with a number of other creatures like cuttlefish who can mesmerize their prey by rapidly changing the colors of their body, or even the vampire squid, who does exhibit bioluminescence. The whole directly touching its own brain bit does bother me, but to be fair, the brain can be stimulated directly in a number of different ways. It's an incredibly invasive procedure in some methods, such as deep brain stimulation, and those are used for sending electrical pulses to specific areas. This would then line up fairly well with exactly what Malamar is trying to do, of course. It just needs certain parts of its brain stimulated to enhance certain abilities that it has and really dominate the battle. Though I kind of wonder if it would ever just poke the right part of its brain just to cause food to taste better, because I know I would. Our last tie that I would like to claim is simply the Humboldt squid, which is sometimes described as a super genius villain, a creature that is cannibalistic, incredibly voracious, massive in size, and the smartest claimed of squid kind. Also, just as a note, a lot of animals are cannibalistic, so that's not really that big of a deal with the squid here. But there are plenty of squid or creatures in general that may have come together to inspire our Pokemon here. As I've stated before, is the usual for any other Pokemon to have multiple inspirations, that is. So maybe we can just add the intelligent Humboldt to our list of Malamar inspirations, especially with its Mega form. Once I saw Binacle, I knew deep inside for some reason that Barbaracle would be getting a Mega, and I begged that it would get the Bodhisattva treatment, and by Arceus, I got exactly what I wanted. I mean, look at this abomination. I love it. Though there's a lot of strange stuff going on here, to put it lightly, because it transforms from a rock water type into a rock fighting type, which is incredibly important considering that despite its very scary, sometimes described as demonic look, that the fighting type is denoted as the hero or heroic type, something with benevolence, honor, martial prowess. Yet for some reason, it is described as a Pokemon that uses its many arms to toy with its opponents. This keeps the head extremely busy. So we can, from there, easily surmise that the head is controlling all of the extra arms, just like how a regular Barbaracle is described to be 7 different Binacle that are given orders from the head. To add to this, and we're going somewhere with this, don't worry, the hands have turned black. The head is now throwing up the devil horns in the rock on symbol, and its rocky body has actually expanded. It's now pocked with black spots and cracks, which kind of makes it a little bit reminiscent of the odd keystone for Spiritomb. And this Pokemon often poses with one leg in front of the other like some sort of fashionista. So how does this all come together? What's going on here? Well, let's begin with the sign of the horns, because it can be described as a gesture in close association with both heavy metal and Judeo-Christian faith. Its ritualistic application in warding off the Malocchio, or evil eye, a supernatural malevolent glare prominent in Jewish rabbinic literature and a number of other cultures actually, which may then serve to represent the head's dominion over the rest of its colony's stalked eyes. And honestly, I, as a Hispanic, remember growing up with the little black hand charm with a little red dot on it, which is apparently called the Azabache, which looks different still from this sign of the horns, also Azabache. Nevertheless, it gives us another tie as to why all of Barbaracle's hands become completely black. There are, of course, other comparisons people have made, such as the Hecatonkrites, otherwise known as the 100-handers, and I know I said that word wrong, the Gijins, and the Asura. But I do feel as though depictions of the Bodhisattva with multiple arms are best fit, mainly due to how they often portray their hands around them evenly in that circular or semicircular pattern. If we want to get real specific with it, we have the 8-armed Bodhisattva, who is known as Avalokiteshvara, a Bodhisattva, a divine being, who is on the path to becoming a Buddha, an awakened one, and helps others on the path toward enlightenment. They are the personification of compassion, though they may also be described as being with 1,000 arms, or just having many other forms with a number of different arms. So take what I have said with a bit of a grain of salt. Nevertheless, their goal is to help humanity with compassion and mercy, which we could describe as a form of friendship. something that is achieved through the unity of not only the Binacle, who have come together to form this Pokemon, but also of the trainer and the Mega, as that bond is necessary in order to achieve true, painless Mega evolution. Ignore the fact that I don't have the lab coat, that I'm dressed differently and everything else. I totally didn't somehow completely miss talking about Mega Hawlucha, even though it is one of the best new Megas we've been given. Now, this Pokemon is already a bit of a showboat, but Mega Evolution has caused it to gain an even higher level of confidence, which I really do love, especially when it was paired with its reveal trailer. Now, Mega Evolution increases Hawlucha's attacking and defensive capabilities, allowing it to use its muscles to tank hits from opponents' moves. It enjoys flexing to show off its newfound strength, and it's basically like a superhero who flexes right before getting hit, and it just leaves them with steam coming off of their body as they just smile at you before they deck you in return. Somebody please get Hawlucha, Buzzwole, and Machamp all together to just flex in front of people as intimidatingly as possible. Now, Mega Hawlucha's heightened defense also allows it to showboat and display its toughness and beauty, holding out its hands and spreading its wings without worrying about letting its guard down. By luring its opponent into attacking then, it is able to retaliate with a flinch-inducing move before diving at them with its signature move, which it doesn't get a Mega exclusive move, but that's okay. You know, this Pokemon is very similar to Incineroar in that capacity, considering it also goads enemies into attacking, yet Hawlucha continues to hold on to this fighting typing, that pure good heroic typing as we've discussed. So why is that? Well, luchadors don't really have a history of practicing their martial arts for freedom fighting, so it isn't that. But when it comes to wrestling, you're always going to have your hero and your heel in the stories. People who serve as the person you cheer on and the person they make you hate through their stories and their wrestling tactics, at least when we talk about quote-unquote fake wrestling. I say fake like that because, let's be real, they're all still pretty beefy, muscly people at the end of the day, and are just tanking hits and giving hits for the most part. The story may be fake, but the action can be real. But the excitement, of course, is drawn in from getting that crowd riled up, getting them screaming and jumping to make everyone drunk on the atmosphere. And I gotta admit, I can go to concerts, I could go to wrestling matches, I could go to all these different things, and I could not care about what's actually happening. But if the crowd is excited, oh, I can feel it in my bones, baby. Oh, I love it. And that is exactly what Mega Hawlucha is going for. And that is exactly what we got with its short story. This is our golden falcon, our golden luchador, and you may even be able to say it draws some inspiration from Aztec culture, because it actually does, and saying it's a falcon is kind of wrong, because the coat of arms of Mexico is a national symbol of Mexico and depicts a Mexican golden eagle perched on a prickly pear cactus devouring a rattlesnake. The design is rooted in the legend that Aztec people would know where to build their city once they saw an eagle eating a snake on top of a lake. The image has been an important symbol of Mexican politics and culture for centuries, and to the people of oh my goodness, word is gonna go here, Tenochtitlan, I don't know how to say it, someone please educate me. This symbol had strong religious connotations, and to the Europeans, it came to symbolize the triumph of good over evil. In other words, Hawlucha will always symbolize these beliefs, will always symbolize that heroic nature, that fighting typing, and watch out for whenever it fights one of our many snake Pokemon on the waters. It's Dragalge time, and this one is a doozy, because when it first Mega Evolved, I was super excited, but I had to just stare at it for a while because my brain was struggling to understand what was even happening. Also, goodness gracious, that made. Anywho, it has big old kelpie curtain wings. It has dancing false eyes and a witch's hat. Or at least those were all my first impressions, because this was just a flashbang to my eyes. And that's because it has a ton of different potential references rolled up into one here. Once again, though, Bulbapedia puts it best. Mega Dragalge resembles multiple species of kelp in the Faisife class, between its head bulbs evoking the pneumatocysts of Sargassum kelp and its plume of long blades imitating the shape of Laminaria ochroleca. Hawlucha. I've redone this like 4 times because these are long words that I just could not get off of my face mouth hole. Anyway, this is exactly as they are described. The Sargassum even gets the same exact redness in its bulbs that we see in the Pokemon here, though I would still consider those orbs to be very eye-like, which may be used to intimidate prey or any would-be predators, as we have stated with other Pokemon, especially when you look at this one from behind. Kind of looks like a strange bird muppet though, doesn't it? Meanwhile, from above, it might actually have a bit of an advantage because it kind of just looks like floating seaweed. So you could imagine this Pokemon floating not at the bottom or in the middle of the water column anymore, but rather near the top, where it can make prey of surface species or any birds that may try to take a swipe at what they think is just floating seaweed. Though the sickest ability of arguably every single Mega ever is that Mega Dragalge spits a liquid that causes the regenerative power of cells to run wild. The liquid is known to be a deadly poison to everything other than itself. In other words, this thing can spit on us and immediately give us terminal cancer is what I'm hearing. Though this power to amplify cell regeneration implies that its toxin is carcinogenic. The carcinogenic properties of its toxins may then reference the nature of seaweeds absorbing heavy metals from the ocean, or may serve as an inversion of Laminaria's status as a medical remedy for both radiation sickness and cancer cell growth. This is due, or at least how that is done, to compounds found within them like alginates or alginates and polysaccharides. It can be used for a lot more apparently, but I am not a doctor, so we won't be discussing it here since I would be oversimplifying it too much and I don't want to accidentally spread misinformation. Though, at the end of the day, for Dragalge here, this one definitely gets my mark for one of the strangest but coolest dex entries of all time, in addition to just a really fun design. Drampa's cells have been invigorated, allowing it to regain its youth in its Mega form, and manipulates now the atmosphere to summon storms. And the second I saw Vinny with this, I was yelling the Zulong's name. This is because original Drampa is already inspired by the Zulong, and now it has brought it to the next level, back to the true power that Drampa is meant to have with its ancient origins. Also known as Shokyun, when Shokyun opens up its eyes, day falls upon the earth. When it closes them, it becomes night. When he inhales, it becomes summer, and when he exhales, it becomes winter. Shokyun does not need to eat, drink, or breathe to survive, but when he does decide to breathe, it causes huge gusts of wind. It even changes from the placid Pokemon, Drampa that is, to the imposing Pokemon upon its Mega evolution. And while we would first meet Drampa in Alola, a place we often associate with warmer, summer-like temperatures, we now get its Mega within Kalos. And boy, when it exhaled, did we get winter. When I first battled it, I was questioning if it became an ice type because it started using these freezing attacks that I knew a regular Drampa would not have access to. And in fact, it did not have access to Icy Wind before Legends ZA, which only solidifies ice. I didn't mean to do that. The link between it and the Zulong once and for all. Though that is the only ice move that it learned naturally without a TM. Now imagine, if you would, a mountain that Drampa would guard in its youth, a fearsome dragon many thousands of years ago that would be exactly as its new moniker would claim, to be an imposing force upon those on the ground below. Though through the millennia, Drampa was softened and became a kinder soul. Kind of makes you wonder what could eventually happen to Pokemon like Hydreigon, who are directly stated in their dex entries to not actually be as evil as it seems. It's just defensive due to all the centuries of being immediately attacked by people out of fear. Now, with Drampa, it fits a lot of typical Chinese dragon characteristics, while looking a bit evil all in all, though its typing does not change. It also gets a mustache that makes me see it only as Monk Doll from Chowder, so if I have to live with that image in my head, so do all of you. You are not free from my weird propaganda. Now, pretty straightforward from here with the last detail, since it has a body completely covered by dark clouds that are reminiscent of storm clouds. I thought that the crest it had on its head was related to a crown, but I just couldn't find anything accurate or close enough. Or maybe I'm just blind and an obvious answer is out there that I just missed. All right, we're on to our last normal, quote-unquote, mega, non-legendary mega or mythical, whatever you want to say. And it's the one that my document, when I'm typing this out, always corrects to Falinks, despite my protesting, as we have the goofy Voltron that is Falinks. Unlike regular Falinks, the 6 members that form Mega Falinks become uneven in size. The brass and 2 of the troopers grow larger, with the brass being the largest. The members that form Mega Falinks arrange themselves in a humanoid formation, which is said to be its ultimate battle formation, and can only be achieved with strong bonds between the troopers and the brass. This is actually a very important point to make, because it takes a lot of trust and cooperation to form a Falinks in general, or Falinks in general. And with the Pokemon here, we've learned through the anime that the leader of a Falinks can be completely incompetent. Though, because the brass's orders are absolute, the rest will just listen to it, as the brass is the smartest. Meaning said brass can just lead them all into a herring battle that they are guaranteed to lose, and they'll all do it without a single thought in their Kirby-like Spartan heads. But again, through not only the strongest of bonds between the brass and the troopers, but also through the bond between trainer and Pokemon, can this mega evolution even be achieved? Now I'm kind of just imagining an army of Falinks walking across the land, and then they pile up to form larger and larger forms of this mega. Pretty goofy to imagine, but I would be terrified if I was on the receiving end of that spear. Which is also hilarious when we break this whole guy down, because we have one dude who grew out his hair to become a sword, another who is being used as a shield, so they may be getting a concussion pretty quickly, I imagine, and they both look pretty angry. Then we have the 2 working as the feet, who seem neutral about it all, and make me think that I'm just gonna hear the Mr. Krabs walk whenever they run around. Followed up by the leader, who is massive and as neutral as ever. But then we have the poor dude in the center, who not only is holding up the entire upper half of this biological automaton, but is seemingly straining to do so at all times with its tiny little baby arms. Like, look, give that center Falinks all the food and the medals. They're putting in a ton of work with the weight and balancing, which this Pokemon is now 218.3 pounds or 99 kilograms. And if we divide that into 6, just for ease, I don't really feel like, parsing out all the weights based on their size, this guy in the center is holding up over 109 pounds or 50 kilograms during the entire time that this form is just created. And I'm a strong guy, but I am not strong enough to hold that much weight up while simultaneously moving at the speeds that they do and balancing all of it as the center mass. I think I could run with 50 pounds like at a decent pace, but not like this. So I think I'll have to pass on being the center Falinks. Thank you very much. But again, I really do like this goofy Pokemon. I love my goofy mons so much. Our semi-final Pokemon is Mega Floette, and technically Ange Floette or Ange Floette, because it is through the power of one that we get the other, and this is wild. Its flower has doubled in size and is now wrapped around Mega Floette's tail through a large red stem that attaches to the heart-shaped tip of the flower, which resembles 3 tied ropes. The eternal flower now closely resembles the ultimate weapon. And of course, it still draws motifs from both Xerneas and Yveltal. Don't know why I said that so weird. Either way, AZ then presents us with Mega Floette himself, or rather, the idea that it can exist and its Mega Stone, knowing that only the strongest of Mega Evolution users can use it. He knows it is his responsibility, but he is far too weak to be able to wield Floette properly, meaning the ZA Royale was done with the intent of finding someone who could bond with Floette and replace him. He theorizes that this unique Mega Evolution may have originated from life force absorbed from Pokemon taken by the ultimate weapon, which he states also explains why Floette breaks the rules of Pokemon, where typically you can't have a Mega form until they reach the end of their evolutionary line. But now it can go straight from this form being unable to evolve and reaches a unique Mega form. The Eternal Flower has absorbed all the Mega Evolution energy, developing a will, allowing it to either attack enemies and defend Mega Floette by itself. When using its enhanced flower, Mega Floette can release a more powerful version of its Light of Ruin. It carries Tawny within a rainbow orb at the climax of this story, and it is used to influence and control Ange from inside Prism Tower. This allows the machine, known as Ange, to transform with the tower and become Ange Floette. The problem here, though, is that the machine loses control, absorbs too much Mega energy. Tawny is unable to properly control the Mega evolutionary power, which, theoretically speaking, AZ may have been the only person who could have done it. It didn't matter who was there. And this thing enters a Hyper Rogue state called, well, Hyper Rogue Floette. Pretty straightforward in its name. Now, I refused to believe that Ange wasn't a Pokemon. It was too alive, too creature-like, and had so much true life to it that I couldn't accept what everyone was telling me, and I still kinda don't. Because the secret here is that Ange is not just the machine, but rather the flower that Floette carries. The same flower that, while extinct in the modern day, was already an incredibly rare flower 3,000 years ago. A flower that was given to Floette and AZ by AZ's mother. And so, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, it can be inferenced that Ange is more than just a flower, but is also the name of AZ's mother. And of course, Ange itself means angel in French. And I want to kind of throw away in this idea that a lot of life energy is used to create new Pokemon. I mean, that's how Magearna came into existence with its Soul Heart. So, is it so strange that this flower isn't a Pokemon, or that it would be or should be a Pokemon that we just can't get our hands on? Now, this flower does absorb so much energy that its roots blast all over Lumiose. They are the same roots that we destroy throughout the city even before the big fight, and when the fight does happen, we are fighting massive red and blue flowers that are using the power of Floette's Light of Ruin. And what does all of this even mean? Well, it means that the Mega energy is exactly what it has always been. Life energy that has been transformed. Whether it be in crystals throughout Lumiose, or it be the Mega Stones that those crystals become, it is life energy. And that energy can be used to Mega Evolve Pokemon. It can turn a flower into a Titanous monstrosity. And I'm going to claim that it can even create Alpha Pokemon because it is effectively excess life energy. But that will be an entirely different video of its own that I will be releasing next. Now, the Flower of Eternal Flower Floette resembles a lily or a trillium, especially the red trillium. Because of her connection to death and resurrection in the story of X and Y, she may also be inspired by the red spider lily, also known as Resurrection Lily, which, particularly in Japanese culture, symbolizes death. Eternal Flower Floette's blue, red, and white body also matches the colors of the French tricolor. But as we do reach the true climax of the story, and an overwhelming amount of Mega energy is brought into Ange Floette as it prepares to unleash a Light of Ruin that is stated to be so powerful it would leave not even debris behind as it wipes Lumiose City off the map, we get our last and most game-changing Mega evolution of all time. Mega Zygarde, a Pokemon I knew was coming for a long time. Multiple videos I've released claim this, but in this climactic moment, as we unleash the full power of Mega Zygarde, we learn of a power beyond anything we could have ever imagined. Nihil Light, or rather, the light that returns to nothing. A beautiful move that effectively acts as a black hole for the ruinous light that Ange Floette was raining down upon the world and erases that light in a dazzling firework-like display. Now, we'll talk more about that move in a moment, because Mega Zygarde is ridiculous in how it looks, and I don't mean that in a negative way, because now it has a giant cannon that is formed from its humanoid body after it effectively pulls the armor off of itself. The underbody of it is purely green energy, as its cells usually are. It has a crown upon its head with an eternal flame spewing from it, a cape, and you can see very tree root-like designs all over this guy. when it does use the cannon, we get to watch as it lights up to show us X, Y, and Z patterns. Of course, showing off that it is the final of the trio, Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zygarde, the great being that brings about balance. And here's a phenomenal detail that should sound incredibly familiar to you. In response to people's emotions during an unprecedented crisis, Zygarde Mega Evolves and calms the situation with its unmatched power. While yes, we can Mega Evolve it on our own, lore-wise, Mega Zygarde has once again shown us its ties to another Pokemon born of the wishes of mankind. Another green Pokemon, balancer within the atmosphere itself, Rayquaza. These two Pokemon are so incredibly tied together that I'm just about foaming at the mouth, waiting for them to be united within the games. We've seen it happen in the anime, but that, of course, is following an entirely different lore that I'm not even going to bother getting into here for the sake of making sure things don't become convoluted. Mega Zygarde is effectively Yggdrasil, which is the world tree or tree of life itself. It is a railgun and a superhero all mixed into one beautiful Pokemon, and I love it so much that I legitimately almost cried seeing it because, I don't know, I cry more out of pure excitement than anything else. If you're new to the channel, you may not know just how much I love ecology. And of course, Zygarde being the protector of the world's ecosystem hits me in a real soft spot. But that aside, there is one more detail that did make me happier than all belief. Because this move, Nihilite, has a base power of 200. It sounds incredibly like Ultra Necrozma's signature move, the light that burns the sky. You know, the light that returns to nothing. And we know Zygarde was in Alola at one point, so what's going on? Well, Lysander says it himself. After Zygarde had saved him and all the people of Kalos from the ultimate weapon firing 5 years ago, it was out of energy. It split apart and needed to regain its energy from the ecosystem around the world. So not only does it protect the ecosystem, but the ecosystem effectively fuels this super powerful Pokemon so it may save the world time and time again. Though when it arrived in Alola, it sensed that something was wrong, and during that time there, it definitely absorbed some of the abnormal energy that is found within the region. This Mega move, that is the only move exclusive to a Mega Pokemon, is stated to remind Lysander of Z moves. And that's because Nihilite is a Z move. Because if Zygarde absorbed energy from Alola, then that means that it absorbed energy from Necrozma, an abnormal being from outside of our universe casting light upon Alola and charging it with Ultra Aura or Z energy, a creature that goes against the laws of nature within our own world. Yet that energy is still absorbed by Zygarde because it is a part of our world's ecosystem and then is used here in a move that is described as the following. The user attacks by unleashing a powerful light that defies all laws of nature, striking even fairy types and ignoring any stat changes affecting its targets. And I hope you're all ready, because Hoopa isn't arriving to cause mischief in our dimension. It's sending out Mega Stones so that way universes have the highest possible chance to defend themselves from Ultra Necrozma. This wouldn't be the only time Zygarde has fought Ultra Necrozma either, if it does happen in the games finally, because it happens within the manga. So does the death of AZ and so much more. So I hope you're all ready, because there are so many different videos that I'm excited to bring to you with all of these new developments, rehashing of lore, everything. And at the absolute least, we can explain that Zygarde hid after saving Lumiose, proceeded to hide again after potentially helping in Alola, which is why it could be found there, and then has to be pieced back together one last time with Lysander's help here in Lumiose for this beautiful grand finale. But with that, we have discussed the secret origins of every Mega that Legend ZA has brought to us, at least until we get into the Mega Dimension Megas. So tell me which one your favorite is. Let me know if I missed anything, because there's definitely more to discover that I cannot find on my own. In addition, again, comments and watch time are the best way to help boost the video, alongside the little hype thing that YouTube does now. So I thank you for watching and making it to the end. And if you'd like to go the extra mile, become a member for as little as $3 a month, so you get early access to videos, emotes, and members-only posts, all alongside hearing your name at the end credits of every video, which we're gonna go do right now. You know, I gotta admit, the day that the slightly crappy green screen ever goes away is the day that I feel like the channel changes, even though it won't. It'll all still be stupid and goofy and fun and just whatever science I can drag into it. But let's thank all the members of the channel, starting with the Gods of Hope, with Quill Phantom 14, Heels for Life, Biggins, Zavati, Knit, and Buzz and Summer, then the champions, the East Coast, and Joshua Biggins Wilson, then the Nectar Court, Crumbo, Betty Lemon, Zoomster, Kelsey, who recovers, Lick Sassy, Vio, Shiny Gem, Sarah, Bruce Boy, Fix My Nitrogen, Quill Phantom 14, Plow, Allen, Heels for Life, Bass Molder, Blue Dalek, Warren Hempfield, then the Wanderers, Yagal Cal, Star as Lumina, Walt, Malroth, Zach Arrowwood, Reed Ayon, Samarfe Nadra, Starbreed, Bob D. Fish, Ganglefrez, Tyrone Jones, Electro Lucario Live R360, Bex, Nicole Macayo, Nicolay, Justin Patrick, Just Bad, Brian Millie, CGA, Platybob, Evan, Electric Solar, Beelzebub Bay, Ruby, Jalandine, Disporting Emperor, Zalik, Keep Moving Forward, Suki, Satsuki, the Black, 232, the Black Dragon, Knit, Ruthless, Hauser, Michael Stein, Jay Gale, Jacob Square, Mr. Diagonal, Yips, Super Saiyan, Son Goku, Vanny Samaru, Max Supreme, Shadowhawk 19, Lost Wisteria, Zakai, Pyro Master, Abdallah Aladi, Gaming Grooves, Night Owl, 707, Evil Chan, Micah 626, Gaming Nicole Manassi, and Kristen 712, Emmy, whatever this is, Alona Figment, Medico T73, Sydney House, Miss Zora, Dakota Couch, Brad, Sundimer, Drixel, Carl Jean, Hunter Alex, Sid Kassam, Rebecca Connell, Hugh, Jeffy W, Memento Mortem, Marshy, Edward Kasowski, Fennica Fox, Hattie, Hag, Addy Cadabra, King Pie, Jackal Frost, Arisha Snivy, Addy C, DJ Monk 23, Squidwater, Rice Smith, Gamer, Just Day, MD Horse with a Cocktail, Muse, Art World, Lumio, East Gator 072, Andrew Frost, Speak Anonymous, Summer Slot, Knocking and Ian Ray, Biggest C, Night Corner of the Comments, Sleepy Bear, Jericho, Michael Baron, Seeley, King, Devonian Skies, Daniel Tracy, Garrick Hoffman, Dylan Peters, Malachi Burkhardt, and Heather Weissman. Thank you all for being members of the channel. It goes a massive mile in assisting with the quality and making sure I can take the extra time that I need to make sure that everything is the way that it should be, so you get you and everyone else gets great content that you deserve. So with that then, hope you're ready. Next video is already going to be on its way, as I'm going to be talking about Alpha Pokemon and how they relate to Mega Pokemon and Mega Energy as a whole. The secrets are uncovered, baby. So, as always, don't you think I want to do? Don't you think I would do? Please be nice to each other. I love you, and I'll see you next time.